Hello and welcome everyone. Today we have with us Advocate Aishwarya Dubey, maritime lawyer and consultant. Advocate Dubey completed his BLLB honors from the prestigious National Law University, Odisha, and went on to pursue his LLM in maritime laws from Gujarat Maritime University, Gandhinagar. As maritime strategist, Advocate Dubey specializes in the United Nations Convention on Law of the Sea, San Remo Manual, SUA Convention, maritime terrorism, underwater cables, privately armed security personnel on board ships, and floating armories. His deep understanding of the maritime commercial laws and security interests of India has not only made him a regular guest faculty in various esteemed universities and institutions, but also a member of the board of advisors of several reputable law publications and legal startups. Presently, Advocate Dubey is the partner, Maritime Affairs, in MNG Legal, Solicitors and Advisors, and Associate Fellow at National Maritime Foundation. A very warm welcome to you, sir.
So much, Ruby. That's quite an introduction. Thank you so much for that.
Right. Sir, to begin with, to start a session with, tell us something about your journey as a lawyer. Was law always your desired field?
So the journey has been quite eventful, I must say. My first choice of profession was not being a lawyer. It was being an army man, that is, an officer of the Indian Army. Sadly, I could not do the National Defense Academy. And after that, I figured out that I do not have any backup options. So then I appeared for the Common Law Admission Test in the year 2011, and I got into the National Law University, Orissa. So that is how my journey started. Then when I went into National Law School and the year started moving around, I was a good sports person. I used to be a good sports person in college. But then again, when I was coming to the final or penultimate years or the ultimate years of my National Law University journey, I figured out that my CV is quite short. So I thought that I'm not into mooting. I do not like to moot. So what is the other option for me? I thought ADR could be a good option for me, and I started participating in multiple national and international ADR competitions, mediation, arbitration, negotiation, and so on and so forth. Then I started winning them. I thought maybe this can be a career option, but then again, life had other plans for me. I switched on to preparing for the Union Public Service Commission Civil Services examination. So that journey started in 2015. I went on, appearing for the examination year after year, up till 2019. Then I figured out that probably this is not my cup of tea. I have done what I had to do. I have exhausted myself, but that one spirit, that one spark in me did not want to die. I thought maybe I should pursue my post-graduation. So I went on to pursue my LLM in maritime laws, and it was a good experience for me, let me tell you. While I was pursuing it, maritime laws have their own very unique vocabulary. They are not very cliched. They are in India, I would say, they are very in a nascent phase. They are still coming up, the avenues in maritime laws and career opportunities. I took a risk, a big risk, but it was a calculated one because I had some amount of understanding about the maritime sector, and that is how I took the plunge. And thereafter, by God's grace, I graduated or post-graduated in maritime laws, and I ended up doing whatever I'm doing currently.
Right. And maritime law in India is definitely up and coming field, but still an unorthodox choice in many respects. How did you decide to specialize in this?
There are two factors that came into play. One, I'm a very risk-taking person. I love taking risks in life. So I thought maybe it might just figure out for me that, okay, I've taken an unorthodox field, and I'm trying to build my career in it. That was one. So risk-taking is one. Second, I come from a family of seafarers. So I've seen the sea, I've lived in the Andamans, and I've seen whatever I have to see. My father is a marine engineer. So I had a fair bit of understanding about the maritime concepts and the maritime industry. So I thought to myself that, okay, this is a lucrative profession. And if I do get a specialized degree in it, I can make a career for myself in this domain. So those were the two factors that played out for me to choose maritime law.
What role do you think a full-time course such as LLM plays in entering the field of maritime?
Oh, it has a lot of credit. One, because of the fact that it's a very niche area of law. And the players who are there in the maritime industry, they would prefer, and they always prefer people who have some amount of academic experience behind them. Because if you want to have credibility, you want to lend credibility to your voice and to your name in the market, you must be having something to show to them. Because at the end of the day, if you do not have the requisite amount of academic expertise, then you cannot translate it into practical expertise. So it's a bridge which acts, because you are making a transition. You have done your LLB, you have done your law course, then you are shifting from general law to maritime law. And it's a very niche area of law, as I am mentioning. It has its own vocabulary, it has its own technical concept. It's very, very contractual in nature. And the disputes that come up, they have to be resolved in a time-bound manner. So in order to understand all of this, to understand how the international trade industry works, because 90% of the world's trade is carried through ships. So that is how you need to understand what maritime operations are, what these technical concepts are, and how they are put into practice. So just a brief about how I understood. First, I used to understand the law. Then the technical concepts I used to ask with different people who are there in the industry, practitioners, I would say, who are very well aware of what is happening. So I used to come back, I used to call my father, I used to call my friends in the industry. They used to tell me, okay, this is the concept, this is how it's done, and so on and so forth. So that gave me a big understanding about all the concepts, all the law and legal aspects which are there in this field. And my internship as well, I was interning in Maersk Line Shipping, which gave me good amount of exposure, let me tell you, very good amount of exposure. Because then I understood, okay, these are the legal disputes that are coming up. So you need to frame yourself in, you need to frame your, how should I put it? Your own understanding, because a maritime lawyer has to think on his feet. Whatever you have read, that's all fine and fair, but you need to develop your own skills. Each and every maritime lawyer is unique. You cannot compare the two of them, any two of them. So I had to develop my own strategy, how to understand it, how to implement it, and so on and so forth. So practical exposure will be quite helpful until and unless you have academic expertise. That's all.
Right. Can you recommend some premier institutes in India that offer this course, and how can one secure admissions in them?
Let's start with my own institution, Gujarat Maritime University. Initially, when we joined, we used to get admitted through our flat scores for PG, that is post-graduation. Now they have their own separate examination for admission into the LLM course. They also have a PG diploma course, which is there. And apart from Gujarat Maritime University, I have not come across any other university in India who's offering specialization in maritime laws, that is commercial maritime law. Another institution is there, QSAT, Cochin University of Science and Technology something, Science and Technology. It's there in Kochi. They offer, but they do not have specialization, I believe, in commercial maritime law. They are much more oriented towards public international maritime law. So that is how it is. In India, if you want to pursue a distance course, there are options for you, because considering we are in a pandemic situation and we are operating from home, even students are learning from home. So there are PG diploma courses. You can go on the website of Lloyd's Maritime Academy. Therein, you can pursue distance learning courses. Even LM is offered in a distance learning mode in World Maritime University in Sweden. So that's how it is. If you want to pursue LLM, there are universities such as the universities in England, University of Swansea, University of Southampton. Then you have National University of Singapore, which is quite nearby to our country. In India, we have just one, I believe, as per my understanding. It's just Gujarat Maritime University. So distance learning can be a good option for you if you want to make the transition from a normal lawyer to a maritime lawyer. So that is how it is.
Can you suggest some books to prepare for these entrance exams?
Let me first tell you that these entrance examinations are general in nature. They are just checking whether or not you have that basic acumen in you, because it's a merit-based test, just like the common law admission test for PG. So the subjects that you need to prepare for your PG entrance examination, the same subject will be needed in this entrance examination as well. So you need not get very specialized books, but yes, for myself, I took the LexisNexis book for CLAT PG preparation. It's a thick book of LexisNexis. It's a maroon colored book, which you can buy from the market. It's hardly 700 or 800 rupees. And it has all the subjects crunched into one. Okay, so that book, if you want to pursue LLM, even let's say for maritime laws in India, that book will be quite helpful for you.
Nice. And do you suggest the aspirants obtain some prior technical knowledge about the field before pursuing their specialization course?
I certainly would, yes, because if you have some amount of understanding of what you want to get into, then you can make a better judgment of whether or not I do want to get into this field, or I should choose another career option or whatever. So yes, you should first, even through YouTube or through Google, it's a internet-based society now, you can just look up on the internet and then start reading about the basic concepts, just the basics. What are bills of lading? What are charter parties? What is the carriage of contracts? What is a salvage? What is stowage? What is pilotage? All these basic terminology. Once you start reading them, then you'll understand, oh, okay, whether or not I'm able to understand them, whether I'm cut out for this field, or I should choose a different career option. So yes, my answer would be yes. Some amount of technical knowledge through academics is required. Yes.
And for that, could you recommend some reading material for an insight into the field?
Rather than reading material, what you should do is go on YouTube and watch videos on maritime laws. Basic concepts. What are bills of lading? What are charter parties? What is salvage? What is stowage? What is general average? Because it will be an interactive session for you. You'll see the ship moving. You'll see a ship being salvaged. You'll see a general average situation, right? Until then, fine. If you want to read it, there are n number of materials on Google itself. There is no one such book which you can refer to that I'll open this book and I'll read all the concepts. Nothing happening of that sort. Go on YouTube, see the videos, see whether or not you are liking it. If you do like them, okay, then you can go into reading about it. But before that, it's better that visual stimulus is given to you rather than just being confined to the books.
And please tell us more about the practice as a maritime strategist in India.
Okay. Maritime laws, as I mentioned, they are up and coming. Okay, so that's how it is. Being a maritime strategist is a different ball game altogether. You need to read a lot. Okay, there are opportunities, yes, in government institutions, within my own institution, that is the National Maritime Foundation. And let me tell you, it's about your own choice. if you have made a choice that yes, I want to become a maritime strategist, you can open avenues for yourself, whether in India or abroad, anywhere in the world. So it's your choice, not just in India. You can travel abroad, you can go around the entire place, you can go to the ITLOS, probably do some amount of research there, some amount of policy making out there, even in the government if you wish to place yourself, that's also available. But it's at the end of the day, it's your choice. If you make that choice, you will make it happen. But if it's not your choice, then even if people are saying to you that get into this field, it will be a gala time for you, nothing happening. You'll not enjoy it until and unless it's your choice at the end of the day. So yeah, opportunities are there, multiple opportunities are there, but you should be willing to invest some amount of hard work, probably a year or two. Then it will start happening.
And what is UNCLOS? And is India a signatory to it?
Okay, it's called the United Nations Convention on Law of the Sea. It's like an overarching document which governs almost every single thing concerning the maritime domain internationally. It's like a universal set, okay, wherein different subsets are there, different elements are there, different conventions are there, which come within the umbrella of the United Nations Convention on Law of the Sea. And yes, India is a signatory to this convention. We have laws which comply with this convention, and it's a good document. Let me tell you, the students who wish to make a career in the maritime sector must gain a good amount of understanding about this document, because it's like the constitution, okay, of the maritime sector. It's like that.
Okay.
If you understand this, you can learn about everything else that follows. Okay. So yeah, that's how it is.
Right. And how does one become an associate fellow in the National Maritime Foundation?
Okay. So while I was pursuing my LLM, what happened was we were supposed to give our examination. We were yet to give our final examination because we were stuck in a COVID situation and we were preparing our dissertations and so on and so forth. Then the vacancy for an associate fellow opened up in the National Maritime Foundation. It was publicized on their website. I applied for it. I had to go undergo certain rounds of interviews, and that is how I got selected. So it's not rocket science, let me tell you, but yes, whenever they have a vacancy, only then will they put up a vacancy on the website. Students or anyone, even practicing advocates, can certainly go out there, look up, keep looking out for different opportunities. Whenever they open up vacancies, you can apply for it. You can go through the procedure as mentioned in the vacancy circular, and if you're good enough, if you're found fit, you will get selected.
Okay, and being an associate fellow in NMF, what are the benefits and responsibilities that come with it?
See, an associate fellow is a designated rank wherein you have some amount of responsibilities for, let's say, your cluster. That is, okay, let me talk about myself. I belong to the Public International Maritime Law cluster within the NMF. So we are supposed to undertake research, undertake policy inputs that need to be given to the government, or let's say any other institution abroad, and engagement track 1.5 diplomacy. Okay, when we say diplomacy, it means a lot of things are happening in the background. Not everyone will see it or visualize it in front of their eyes. It's just that we are exchanging documents, we are exchanging views, we are exchanging best practices with different institutional partners that we have, and it's like sharing your vision. Whatever vision your country has or your institution has, you want to share that vision and bring everyone on board on that ship that you are sailing. So responsibilities are there. Responsibility for undertaking research, for undertaking strategic research, for let's say participating in seminars, conferences, roundtable discussions, and even at that point of time, we also undertake academic programs. We also have our internships. Right now, we are conducting the summer internship for students as well as people who want to undergo this internship. We have 1 month internship, 3 month internship, and 6 month internship. So that's how it is. So in that internship, we teach and train the candidate, that is the intern. Because let me tell you, in India, we do not have good amount of understanding about the maritime sector. When you talk to them, you say, we belong to the maritime sector, I'm a maritime sector professional. They'll just come to you and say, oh, do you work in the merchant navy? Or do you work for the Indian Navy?
Right.
That's how the perception is.
Right.
Right. So they do not have that understanding. And the National Maritime Foundation is the sole maritime think tank in India. It is the sole institution. Okay. So considering all of that, we also have a responsibility to disseminate knowledge, to disseminate our expertise with the younger generation, because they want to know. We want to train young professionals, young students, so that tomorrow, or probably even now, they take up this responsibility and they make a career for themselves in this sector. So these are the responsibilities that we undertake.
Right. And what are some practical difficulties you have faced during your practice in the maritime sector?
Could you clarify as to whether as an associate fellow in an NMF or as a lawyer or MNG legal?
In NMF and as a lawyer.
Okay. So practical difficulty is to make people understand just the basics of maritime. Okay. Concerning myself, basics of maritime laws. And whatever you are saying, it might sound gibberish to the other party because they have no understanding. So you have to start from ground level, then start the building, start building up, and so on and so forth. So it's a different process. Every single time that you start talking to someone, you have to start from zero. That's the problem. This is the biggest problem. That people have no understanding, then you have to teach them, then you can converse with them. That's how it is. So that is one challenge that we are facing in the as a personal challenge in the NMF while interacting with other different partners and institutions. As a lawyer, let me tell you, a partner in MNG Legal, you have to be on your toes 24/7 because the maritime industry does not sleep. Somewhere in some part of the world, some ship will be in distress. There would be some claim coming up because, as somebody said, that the sun never sat on the English, but that's the same for this industry as well. The sun never sets on the industry. Somewhere it's a good morning for everyone. So that's how it is. So at probably 2 a.m. in the night, you might get a call from some person sitting in, let's say, Atlanta, that, oh, sir, we have a problem. Now, what can we do about it? And you cannot say no because they are your clients. So at the end of the day, you have to be on your toes 24/7, 365. There are no Sundays, holidays, whatever. But yes, it's a very lucrative profession, let me tell you. The money to be made is significantly higher in this arena of law practice. Yes.
And in such an unorthodox sector of law, who have been your mentors, professionally or personally?
So that's a tough choice to be made. And there are essentially two people, two of them. One is Ms. Pratikalpa Sharma. She is assistant professor research in Gujarat National Law University. She has been a mentor throughout, whether let's say personal or professional, while I was undertaking this journey. She has absolute amount of expertise in maritime laws. Okay, so that's one person, and she's a very good-hearted human being. She's always there to help you, whether it be any time of the day. So that's how it's been for me. Another person who has literally handheld me is Commander Anand Kumar. So Commander Anand Kumar is the Deputy Director in the National Maritime Foundation. And he has been a guiding light because when I entered into the National Maritime Foundation last year, I had no understanding about public international maritime law, only very frail and weak amount of understanding. That's what I had. But through constant mentoring, through constant hand holding, now I'm slowly gaining some amount of foothold in this industry, in this arena of maritime sector. So yes, Pratikalpa Sharma, Ms. Pratikalpa Sharma, and Commander Anand Kumar, they have been, both professionally and personally, have been my mentors. And I'm really, really thankful to God that yes, I have these two mentors with me.
Nice, great to hear. And can you recommend some organizations or firms specializing in maritime law in India, where our aspirants may be able to get more hands-on experience?
So they are divided in sector-specific domains. Let's say you want to pursue maritime law, make a career as a maritime lawyer. One arena could be a shipping company. Let's say where I work, there are multiple shipping companies in India. Shipping companies will give you a hands-on experience of maritime claims that are coming up, any kind of claims, cargo detention, cargo damage, cargo theft, this and that, whatever. So that is one area, that is one organization that can hire you as an intern and give you hands-on experience. Others are maritime law firms, such as Bose and Mitra. It's a very dedicated firm towards the maritime sector. They have a very rich practice, let me tell you. Students can apply there and they can get internships that will help them understand the maritime operations and the maritime claims that are coming up. Apart from that, our own institution, that is the National Maritime Foundation, you can apply to us whenever we put out the circular for internships, wherein you will get a hands-on experience and you will also be taught, because this is a very unique institution wherein you are taught and trained and then you are expected to perform. It's not that we'll throw you into the open sea and then we'll ask you to swim. No, we'll first teach you, we'll train you how to swim, where the water is much more deeper, where the water is shallower. And then we'll give you the life jacket and then we'll drop you into the swimming pool. Okay, now you swim. So that's how it is. Rather than throwing you out into the sea and asking you, okay, now you perform. So that's how it is for all of us. So all these institutions are there. You can Google it. Maritime law firms, shipping companies, shipping lawyers, even consultancy firms. You will get a hands-on experience on maritime operations and sometimes even legal cases for that matter. So yeah, that's how it is.
Right. Thank you. I mean, that was one of my questions that I was curious about. So thanks for answering that, if your firm itself is hiring at the moment or not. But since you talked about your mentors also, are there any memorable experiences in practice which you would like to share?
Memorable, yeah, in the sense that somewhat bitter experiences were also there, and I also received certain pats on my back. So there was one institution, one incident, wherein we were undertaking some amount of, we had an endeavor to undertake, and I was working in a team. But at that point of time, I somehow understood that I cannot work in this team. And that is why my efficiency went down. Because, okay, I should not brag about myself, but when I work independently, I'm a much more better professional. When I work in a team, then you have to adjust and adjust accordingly with every single person in the team. And that is where my efficiency went down. So at that point of time, I received some amount of negative comments and negative feedback. But let me tell you, that negative comment or that negative feedback made me work harder. It made me stretch myself much more. And then let me tell you, you never grow when you are in your comfort zone. You grow when you are faced with adversity, when you face challenges in life. And from that point onwards, it happened last year. And from that point onwards, my life took a turn in the professional sphere and I started performing gradually. So that was one incident wherein I grew. Another incident which I want to share is while I was interning. Let's go back to my academic years. I was interning in Maersk Line. There were two of us, two interns working in this office, and my colleague happened to meet with an emergency situation, medical emergency, and we were assigned a good amount of claim cases. She, due to certain reasons, medical reasons, she had to excuse herself from the work. And from that point onward, I had to take up, whatever needed to be done to resolve the remaining cases. I had never imagined, I had sincerely never imagined that I can undertake this substantial amount of work while also helping my colleague, because she was admitted in the hospital. Let me tell you, she was there in the hospital. I had to, sometimes also had to go and see her, and I also I was also undertaking the work that was assigned to the two of us. Now I'm the only person who's left, and I have somewhere around 1 week to go, and we are only at the 50% mark. Then from that point onwards, I worked day and night to complete the work. That made me realize that only when you, let's say, as I was mentioning earlier, you are faced with an adversity.
Yeah.
Then
when you're thrown under the bus.
Yeah. Then you see what are your own limits. Because at that point of time, let me tell you, I can pat myself on the back when I say this, that I was working round the clock to get the work done. And we had 24 hours before the deadline to submit the work. We did it before just 1 day was about to get over. We submitted it before the deadline and we made the presentation. And the person who were evaluating us, they said, you have done a brilliant job. Considering both of you were in a soup, in a tight spot, but then you managed it very well. So that situation made me realize that you can stretch yourself. You will know about yourself that, yes, if I've done this, if I've gone through this much amount of hell, then I can, undertake anything. Come what may. Let it come. That's all right.
Right.
So that's how it works.
Having successfully conducted several arbitrations also, what set of skills would you suggest are more crucial in arbitration than litigation?
One is managing the time, first and foremost. Because arbitration is a quasi-judicial process, and when people come to you for arbitration, they're looking for a speedy resolution of the dispute. Okay, so there might come situations wherein parties are, arguing with each other, and they might be beating around the bush, they might be going around in circles. But at that point of time, you must make both the parties understand that, okay, all of this is done and dusted. Let's come to the basic point. What is it that you want? Okay, you make averments on those points, and then we'll figure it out. So managing time, managing people's emotions. You have to be an empathetic listener, and you should be a good leader. When I say this, because you have to lead the whole room. They'll try to throw insults at each other. They'll try to do whatnot, but you have to manage both of them. You have to manage the process, and you have to get it resolved in a time-bound manner. So efficiency in time, empathetic listening. Third and most importantly, you have to control the situation. Okay, because they'll start fighting and they'll do all sorts of thing, but at
Absolutely.
the end of the day, you have to.
Right. And,
That is-
we often hear about cases where our fishermen unknowingly cross international borders and are apprehended. How does a maritime lawyer tackle such a situation?
Uh, Let me tell you, these interactions are government to government interactions. Okay. Let's say a fisherman from country A has crossed into the territorial sea of any other country, country B. Now, those two countries will be having channels for communication. Those two countries will be having such mechanisms in place wherein such problems occur. And then they exchange their captives if they have caught them, and they'll exchange them, they'll ask them to go back or whatnot. In this situation, a maritime lawyer is there just to advise the party. If he or she is hired by, let's say, the government, they can advise the parties that these are the legal implications which need to be taken into consideration, and that is how the process can move on smoothly. But essentially, it's a government to government process. They have their channels, they have their negotiation mechanisms wherein they communicate with each other, and they exchange whoever they have caught, they exchange it with the other part. So that's how it is.
Right. And so, lastly, any words of advice for our students who are graduating during the pandemic?
I myself graduated or post-graduated in the pandemic. I completed my post-graduation last year. My advice would be, if you're getting any opportunity, internship, job, or whatever, grab it. Grab it and start working. If you wait for the time that, okay, we'll wait for the time that when everything will become hunky-dory, then we'll apply and this and that, there will not come a time which is a very opportune moment. The time is now. Whether if you do not have an opportunity, talk to people, talk to professionals, make it happen. If there are no opportunities, build up the opportunity, brand yourself, market yourself, okay, when you're graduating. And most importantly, you have to be a risk taker. Life has thrown this pandemic at you, make the best use of it. Use it as a challenge that yes, the markets are down, no problem. We'll create opportunities for ourselves. We'll make it happen, come what may. So the spirit has to be very, very robust that yes, I'll make it happen, come what may. Even probably it might take some amount of weeks, months, or whatever. You must have patience, because if you have patience, even and you want to get something, you want to become a maritime lawyer, then even the universe will start conspiring. There's a beautiful saying I'm unable to recall that if you start working towards something, initially, what will happen is you will face obstacles, big obstacles. But if you try to overcome them, even the universe will start throwing things at you. That, okay, take this help, take this help, take that help. So that is how you will start building up. It will take time, let me tell you. But this class of 2020 and 2021, will be the most robust and tough class in the years to come.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. And with that last question, we've come to an end of this enriching conversation. Thank you so much for sparing your valuable time. We had a lovely time speaking with you, and I hope you felt the same. So until next time, take care, sir, and be safe. Thank you.
You too, Ritu. Thank you so much for your time, and it was indeed a pleasure talking to you. Thank you, everyone.